Okay, so today's chat is with designers and educators, Beena and specialist, environmental specialist, Chai Fundanga, and Doris Phiri from Cotton Association. So basically what we're talking about today is circularity in the fashion design industry. And we are looking at how fashion designers can incorporate circularity in their designs, in their products, and in their business systems. And we just want to hear from the professional side, Bina's end, as you are teaching, you are lecturing, and you have churned out a lot of designers, I'm sure. And, you can just go ahead and introduce yourself and also tell us how designers have received circularity systems or lectures as you are teaching, how many you've churned out, where you are working from, and yeah, things like that. So I leave the floor to you, Beena.
Thank you so much, Betty. And it's a pleasure to be in this platform, sharing with our experiences amongst each other. And it gives me great pleasure that all of us are together. And we are discussing about something that is called circularity. And circularity, basically, it's a loosely coined term, like many a times what happens is people take sustainability and circularity in an interchangeable way, and but actually circularity leads to sustainability. So when, as an educator, it's very important for us educators, especially in the design field, to basically churn our students, uh, in our train our students in such a manner that they understand the importance of sustainability, which eventually, circularity, which eventually leads to sustainability. Now, there are a lot of designers who are basically working from the sustainable point of view, but circularity is something that everybody needs to understand. Sustainability can be, like the students are taught in a manner where they are basically taught how to save fabric, how to use organic dyes, how natural dyes, how they are supposed to use organic fabrics. They are taught to discover new methods by which they can, eliminate the waste that is generated during the garment production. So all those things are what we try to, give to the students from the creative aspect, and we try to make them understand and develop methods by which you can recycle, refurbish, revamp, upcycle, try to make them understand these terms and how they can incorporate these terms in their work culture or in their study culture. So when it comes to the students, we have always tried to make them understand the importance of the resources that they have, so that they understand that these resources are meager, these resources are less, and we need to use them in a meticulous manner so that we do not waste anything. So usually what we do is that we give them assignments, we give them projects where they are supposed to be using any of the sustainable methods by which they can, at least bring a difference to the understanding of sustainability. They understand what is sustainable design, and they understand basically how they can incorporate the concept of sustainability into their uh, designing. Now, coming to circularity, we need to make them understand circularity also, because circularity is a very, it's a word which is interchangeably used with sustainability. Now, when you're talking of circularity, there are many more aspects that are added to circularity. There are things like, it's basically a concept where you have to think about eliminating waste, and also you have to consider the reuse of the products that have already been made. So which means you are not left with any waste, and hence that's the reason it's known as a closed loop economy, or it is known as a circular economy, or it is also known as cradle to cradle, whereas the earlier economy was all about the linear economy, which was from cradle to grave. You use, you make, use and dispose. So we have to see to it that we now, with the current scenario, with so much of waste that has been generated, so much of environmental pollution that has been, the students are sensitive to these kind of issues. The students understand that there are various methods by which you can actually you create circularity. Now, very simple examples like we talk about bridal trousseaux. People spend money, so much of money on getting a bridal dress. They spend lakhs and lakhs and lakhs and of rupees for it. But you have heirlooms in your house. You have beautiful garments which have been crafted. So why can't those be used again? Fashion is cyclic, it stays. You can mend it, you can repair it, you can rent it. Why you really want to spend so much of money in buying it? So students need to be made to understand that repairing, mending, reusing, all those things are not bad. You don't have to chase fashion. You don't have to run after fashion. Just hoarding your cupboards or closets with so many garments. A t-shirt which is old, why don't you just use it again in some other manner? So, Betty, you want to say something?
Yes. How have the students, of course you teach about these things to the students and everything, but how have they
Yes.
have they
Yes.
incorporated it, and are they doing it in society?
Absolutely. The last year we had the whole project was basically based on circularity. They had tried to contact the industry. They had basically asked them for the waste, and they had tried to incorporate all the waste that was generated from the industry to something that is very creative, and their whole final project was basically based on that. And there were 40 students who were working on that. Many of them have posted on LinkedIn also. They actually visited places where they could get waste knitted fabrics. They would get waste wool. They would get yarns. They have woven yarns from jute sacks, which are just basically used for packaging. And they have collaborated with artisans, the craftsmen, because India is very rich in art craft. India is very rich in a lot of India is very rich in lot of artistic arts and crafts. So students are basically taught to even sustain that. The previous year the students were basically worked with all the artisans and craftsmen who need recognition, whose craft needed recognition. So these students, and finally now many of them have developed their own brands. There are a couple of students who are basically actually working in such a manner that there is no waste generated after their production. There are students who are trying to incorporate methods by which they can use the artisans, the local craftsmen, and they are given so some sort of living opportunities. So there is a lot of work that is happening in terms of students, and once they pass out from here, once they go out from here, also they are continuing this habit. And this is basically, we try to inculcate these things in them right in the beginning. So as they say that if you take care of the process, the product take care of itself.
Yeah.
So we try to take care of the process so that the product that we churn out from our college are sensitive to these kind of issues.
How about the public? With the designers that are doing the sustainable fashion, and
Right.
how do you think the public has taken it? Do they are they willingly buying these products, and are these
Need to
designers?
educate them. So they see there is again, yes, Betty, there are a lot of people who like people like us, people who basically understand the concept of who people understand the concept of ethical fashion. And if you just even just Google it, India is really working a lot towards sustainability and all, and the designers are contributing in different manners by which am I is my voice breaking, Betty?
No, you are okay. I can hear you.
Hello?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, okay. So it's basically about educating the customer. Like if a consumer or a customer is coming to a store which is basically catering to ethical fashion or circularity or any of those things, basically you try to educate the customer as to what is the importance of these things. And suddenly these words have cropped up, like circularity and sustainability, but we have always been having a sustainable living. I remember my mom's old clothes, which were braided and made into doormats. So there were old clothes in the in the house were basically used for some other purpose, for making bags and all those things. But suddenly this has got, it's become a fancy word, because people have become aware that okay, so much of waste is generated. Now what is supposed to be done to save this? And suddenly it has got a lot of fancy. So it's just that everybody is doing recycling, reusing and all those things in some or the other manner. The only thing is you need to sensitize people towards it. And yes, it's not a very easy task, it's a very difficult task, because people always believe that ethical fashion comes with a big price tag. So that notion has to be removed.
Yeah, it's true. I'll take
That is most
you back.
important aspect.
Okay. I think for now let's hear from Chai. Chai, you've worked with a lot of companies, organizations, the society, a wildlife and environmental conservation society of Zambia, the United Nations, the Ministry of Lands. Just also maybe introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit about the work that you have done, what you have seen, what you have observed, and also in particular how you think the fashion industry or the creative industry in Zambia can adopt this circular economy and systems and all those things.
All right. First of all, I'd like to start by thanking you, Betty, for this opportunity to be here today. So, as Betty mentioned, my name is Chai Fundanga. Can you see me? Hello?
We can see you.
Okay, great.
Okay.
So basically, I studied everything to do with environmental management, and I kind of migrated towards sustainability as a result of my work experiences. So I did my studies in Europe, and I think the exposure to Africa and the realities of developing countries made me realize that I couldn't just focus on environmental issues alone. We had a bigger scale of issues, especially in Africa, if we were to protect any kind of environment. And as Beena mentioned before while I dive right into sustainable fashion, it's also important when you're talking about circularity to look into sustainability. I think that's the first key. People should always understand where circularity came from and where this whole issue of reducing, reusing, and all that, where it's birthed from. So for me, whenever we work in companies or NGOs or, and we're carrying out awareness, the first focus is to make people understand the birth of sustainability and the reason behind it. And I always try to make people understand that sustainability has got nothing to do with simply protecting the environment. If anything, it's to ensure that mankind can continue to survive on Earth, because people always the ideas, they don't realize that the work is to protect mankind and mankind's activities. And I liked when Beena mentioned that people don't realize that their resources are running out and ensuring that they do not over consume the resources will enable a long-term life cycle or lifespan of their businesses. So those are key things that I always try to send off messages when I'm like doing awareness on sustainability. And even with the companies I worked with, those are the things I try to push on in that. So if I'd have to say a few things which I've seen, I'll bring out a few things that Beena mentioned. People, like I mentioned, people have an issue with sustainability because they assume it's got nothing to do with them and more to do with animals and protecting the environment. A second thing is people are fearful of prices. So on the grander scale, for sure, sustainability and circularity is expensive. If you're talking about renewables or bigger things, but they don't realize that for a lot of situations, using waste is actually cheaper than going to buy new resources or importing new resources and producing things with it, which is unfortunate because if they realize that, they'll be able to produce so much more and create so many more opportunities for themselves. But this is information that is not out there and things that they do not realize. And I think it's also based on the fact that people have not yet been educated on the possibilities in regards to the type of waste, what they can do with different types of wastes. And that's maybe because we don't actually know the nature of most of our materials. For example, you're wearing an outfit and you don't even know, for example, that some of it is made of plastic or, So if people were more educated on the initial nature of most of their materials, they'd be more open to exploring the different types of wastes that are available. So with my own work, it's like it's nothing, it's got no value. What people don't realize is with time and with this whole concept like sustainability and everything, waste has a cost. People have to treat waste. Waste has to be, you throw something away, but it's not away, it has to go somewhere. And wherever it's going, you have to be treated, and that's a cost. And on top of that, apart from that cost, you also have the legal cost. So as a company, you have a legal responsibility to certain things. Big companies cannot just throw things away anymore because if you just go pouring things in lakes or whatever, you have a certain form of legal responsibility to that. So as a result, that's how circularity came about. So to make people understand that waste has a value, it has to be treated, and as a producer, you have a legal responsibility to manage that waste. As a result, it's a valuable aspect. And so it would be interesting for you to reuse it or find a way to deal with it, rather than assume that it's just being thrown away in some random airspace and not being dealt with. So yeah, so that's another point. So with time, sorry?
You just mentioned, yeah, I just wanted to chip in a little. You mentioned, how companies have a responsibility towards waste and all those things. So if we bring it down to the, smaller local fashion designers, for example, smaller companies and not really on a large scale, do you think, on the Zambian scene, we could at one point get to get designers or makers to actually consider the legal responsibility and also take on waste management issues like on a serious level? Do you think that could be possible?
I think it could be possible if we start focusing on the excessive amount of dump sites that are just ensure that we do find, I'm calling them dump sites, but to be honest, they're not even dump sites really. They're just areas where people start throwing things and before you know it, it turns into some random dump site just by a residential area. And if you go in there and start picking things one by one and show people that there's literally all kinds of products, it's not just one type of company, person or polluter here. There's clothes, there are bottles, there are plastics, and these things, and show them how such a dump site can evolve into health issues. We have in Zambia, what's our biggest thing? I think it's cholera, if I'm not mistaken.
We have a lot
cholera.
of cholera and, I think some other kind of airborne diseases as well. I think it's
Exactly.
just that people don't realize that, but we have, for example, have you been to the garden compound? We have a sewer thingy there, and there's a whole sewer system going on there, and I think people don't realize that living in such an area is quite toxic, actually.
Exactly. Exactly. You know, back in the days, my mom used to laugh and be like, sometimes I think we have to punish the person buying, you know, so they can learn a lesson. Because, you know, people go in, I'll buy a bottle of whatever it is that a street vendor is selling, and I'm done with it and I throw it away, right? But if I make the person who's buying it fear, they'll be more responsible. Whereas, you know, people selling, they get away with it, things so many times. I sell this point, I move to the next point because I've got problems with the cops and everything. But if we as consumers start seeing that we have also a responsibility in this and not just put the responsibility strictly on the people supplying, then, you know, as a whole, people will start, you'd see more change because people would realize that we are all accountable.
I think Chai is
cannot, but I guess it goes back to
okay.
the producer consumers. But yeah, so I think it's, for me personally speaking, I think we'd have to really make everyone, especially in Africa, responsible to some extent. We'd have to educate people more and show really that it's got nothing to do with one particular polluter. It's not just the plastics, it's literally everyone, by showing the kind of things we find in dump sites. To answer your question, Betty.
Just adding up to what Chai just said.
Beena.
Chai, can I?
Yes.
Just adding up to what Chai just said, I totally agree with what Chai just told, because it's just not the responsibility of the designers, or it's just not the responsibility of industries. It's everybody's responsibility of, you know, trying to see whatever we are left with, you know. And it's not about, okay, you recycle, you revamp and all of that. There are different methods. There are a lot of methods by which you can actually save a lot of our resources. But most important, when you're talking circularity at the industrial level, also the people have to be very conscious as to what they are doing, which can lead to circularity. You know, like very simple, dyeing houses. They have so much of waste that is in form of water, polluted water, that needs to be recycled so that it can be used either to water the plants, or it has to be used again, or for the re-dyeing purpose, and all those things. So there is no waste water that is generated. Water again being a very, now it's becoming the most scarce resource. People are buying bottles in water in PET bottles. Now, what about those PET bottles which we are discarding? And once you put those, they release methane gas, which is absolutely, you know, hazardous to our health. So absolutely fantastic, Chai. I really totally agree with what you are saying.
So
Chai,
we
I'm
are
so sorry
talking
to
about we're actually talking about personal responsibility here. Like we are all going down to the personal level where, you know, you just mentioned water, and I'm thinking, you know, even there's a lot of construction going on besides the fashion industry. I mean, the construction industry also is design, right? There's a lot of construction going on. People are building houses, and I've just noticed that you know, not so many people are designing their houses in a sustainable way. For example, there's no, you know, rainwater harvesting, for example. There's no, you know, energy saving or using biogas and things like that. So I think it really has to go down to a personal level where people take personal responsibility to actually take on this, you know, movement and all those things. But I don't know what is happening in India and the government and its involvement, and maybe the local councils, like, for example, those who take care of waste. I don't know what is happening there. But do you think that we could, how do we get the government to really like sort of come in in a forceful way to sort of like educate the people on how to deal with waste? How do you think we can go about that? Especially Chai, because you've worked with you know, Ministry of Lands and all this, you know, government in a way.
We could start already by, you know, the concepts that exist already, like companies like Lafarge that collect waste and they reuse it to produce. Go into a concept like industrial ecology, get big companies and show them, okay, what do you produce? you produce this item, guess what? The hospital here produces a lot of waste of this, and you could use that waste to produce whatever it is you're producing. And then that company funds the whole system to collect that same waste. And as a result, government is cut off running these systems, because what people don't realize is countries in Europe, for example, I was living in France, it is extremely expensive for them to be collecting waste and cleaning streets every single day, a luxury which we cannot particularly afford. Whereas if we focus on the SDGs like the UN has presented in partnerships, and go into partnerships with different big companies and tell them, yo, listen, you can collect waste here, potentially recycle it, make money out of it, or you can collect waste and use it to produce whatever it is you're producing. Okay, Lafarge, you do this, guess what? Work with this hotel, they produce this waste. So, you know, going into innovative ideas on how we can deal with managing, at least reducing a certain amount of waste is already a good idea. The next step would be maybe to have, maybe go into partnership concept. So in Europe, they have incinerators and they produce electricity there with the incinerators, and the electricity is redistributed in small communities. So a company, you know, big company that is sent to the grid and redistributed in communities, they get back their money. It's a win-win situation, basically. All about innovation. There's so many ways we could get rid of waste and make money out of it. It's just that I think we're not yet been exposed to those options.
Okay.
I think
That's
it's
interesting.
all about it and expose people, and also I think education. Sorry.
Yeah, I think you can just finish your thought. It's just that I think the connection is.
Betty.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Did you hear me?
Yes, I did. It's just that the connection was a little bit poor at one point. But yeah, maybe you can finish your thought, and then we can at least we can talk to Doris and we just hear what the cotton industry is doing about all this thing. Okay, Doris, are you here? Doris, are you here?
Hi, but yeah, I'm here.
How are you?
Hello? I'm fine, thank you. How are you? How is everyone?
Yeah, Doris, you are from the Cotton Association of Zambia. We know that.
Hello?
Can you hear me?
Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can get you now.
Yeah, we were just talking about the Cotton Association of Zambia. You are from there. You've been there for some time now, and the Cotton Association has also been there for some time now. Zambia, we all know. Okay, people should know that we grow a lot of cotton, and you know, most of it actually is exported, and you know, all those things. And then we get finished products, materials that we buy at a very high cost. Yeah, so maybe you can just introduce yourself, talk a little bit more about the Cotton Association, the weavers that you work with, and the ginneries. I know you work with ginneries as well, how you produce the cotton, and generally how the response has been from makers in Zambia. Do they use the fabric that comes from, you know, the local weavers, and just how is it going? Maybe you can just talk a little bit more about that.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. So my name is Doris Phiri. I'm the Monitoring and Evaluation Officer at the Cotton Association of Zambia. At the same time, I also work with women under business development. So I'm currently doubling up with business development there. And in terms of working with women, with the weavers, we work with rural women who are the cotton farmers in the rural areas. As the association, we represent these farmers. At the same time, we also try and train them or capacity build them in different ways. We also train them in smart agriculture practices and also the value addition, which is value addition to cotton. So in terms of the women weavers, we train them in handloom in weaving using the handlooms. We try to use handlooms and to promote handlooms, considering the situation in Zambia where most rural areas don't have electricity, so we can't use power looms. Then we also promote hand spinning, which is also just by hand in the rural areas. So basically, these women grow the cotton and they harvest it. And after that, we have a ginnery, a farmer-owned ginnery, which is in Mumbwa. The farmers take their cotton there at a very affordable rates, because we also try to promote good pricing of cotton for all cotton farmers, not just our members. So at the ginnery there, they take the cotton there and they gin it from their own ginnery at an affordable price. And when they gin it from there, they're able to get all the byproducts of the cotton, which they can do with it whatever they want. So in this case, they collect the yarn after it's been ginned, and they're able to weave and make different fabrics that they want. Then if not taken to the ginnery, also in the process of promoting we have these mini ginning or mini ginneries that are just very small and can be in a home setup, and we're trying to have them gin and get the lint from it, and after that they are able to make the yarn just from their homes, and from the yarn that they make from their homes, they are able to weave and make different kind of fabrics. Yes. Then in terms of what else is there? In terms of materials that they make, so they also try to make they make this fabric and they sell within their local areas. The ones we have in Lusaka have a wider market. They sell to hotels and to hotels, schools, and just various places. Then they also within the communities, the women in the communities, we also try to encourage them to use natural dyes, because it's widely available there. They can make a lot of different in the fabrics, the artificial acrylic yarn, because in the past they would use that. Well, they still use it even now, the acrylic yarn, but we're trying to discourage it and encourage the use of natural dyes. Then they also do recycle, because there's at the moment they can't have all different types of yarn needed for different fabrics that they make. So they recycle old, for example, they get old jerseys with a different kind of fabric that they want, the kind of yarn that was used, then they remake into different kind of clothes and shawls. So for example, they would get old used clothes and they remove the yarn from it, the yarn that was used, the cotton that was used, and make something else. Then they also use the jute fabric, the old sacks, to make, mostly this is for home decor and everything. So trying to encourage all that. We mostly, the ones who really use such things are the ones in Lusaka. So at the moment, we're trying to spread the whole idea and teach the rural women also in making such fabrics. Yes, then in terms of fashion designers and the use of this fabric that the women make, we have a few that have come up with creative ideas, but mostly they use it for home decor. Yeah, and not really clothing, because the type of fabric that's being made at the moment, due to the yarn that the textile is able to produce is not really, it's just one type. So unless they recycle and make a thinner type, that's when they can make into clothing. But right now they make mostly home decor stuff, curtains, wall hangings, table runners, and a lot of stuff. I can share pictures after of the things they make.
I think pictures would really be nice to just sort of like show people, you know, what kind of things that come out from, you know, are made from the local materials and all those things. Let me just
Sure,
welcome Dr. Chala from Rock University. We're thankful, sir. You're welcome to our chat.
Thank you, Betty. Good morning. And good morning, the presenter and everyone connected to this chat. Thanks so much. I'm happy to be part of this. Thanks.
Thank you so much. We are very grateful for your support. And we know that together we can reach greater heights with all major stakeholders, you know, putting in the efforts and all those things. Doris, let me just also try to connect. I'm trying to, because we are talking about sustainability, yes, we are talking about how we are using our resources. I'm just trying to link to see if at all there's any kind of sustainable measures that you take when these women are growing the cotton. What do they do with the cotton plant waste, for example? I know that the cotton stalks can be used for mushroom growing, and you know, the waste also can be used to make cardboard, to make boxes, you know, pulp paper, for example, and things like that. Has the Cotton Association, you know, been able to adopt such kind of innovative ideas? Have you maybe talked to, just like Chai was talking before, you know, talking to industry and saying, okay, there's this waste coming from the cotton growing people, and you people make paper, for example. Are those kind of things that you are trying to, or you have considered or considering to do as we are, you know, trying to talk about sustainable and sustainability in the clothing industry? Are those some of the things, ideas that you can incorporate, for example?
Yes, in terms of cotton stocks, at the moment we like on the last season, because by law the cotton stocks are supposed to be burnt by 30th of October, if I'm not mistaken. But with the last season, we tried to avoid that and bought all the cotton stocks. We're trying to start briquette making with the cotton stocks for home consumption, and which is gasification, I mean, for home use, instead of maybe cutting trees. So this is also in the efforts to avoid households from cutting trees for charcoal. We're telling them, instead of them cutting trees and making charcoal, they can use their cotton stalks in making briquettes, and those, for gasification and for biomass mostly. And also, we also have the waste from the cotton seed. We have cotton crushing as well under the value chain of the cotton seed. We make cooking oil from the cotton seed. So after the cotton seed, there's also the cotton cake, which is fed to animals. We also try to get that waste and make the cotton cake for animals. So yes, in terms of waste management, we try to do that with our farmers and encourage them. They can increase their food for their animals, the nutritional level, and also the gasification in terms of cooking.
That's interesting. I think are you archiving this anywhere so that people can see all these possibilities? Because I think in fact, you know, the cotton farmers have been complaining that they don't make much money out of it. I think the last time that I visited the Eastern Province, there was a lot of waste. People grew cotton and harvested, and it was just lying around. There was nobody to buy. So people were actually, saying it's not profitable and everything. But with all these innovations that you are talking about, are you documenting them in anywhere where people can, go and check and, pull out and work with you in a way? Of course, we are talking about fashion and everything, but all these things are coming up. And I think it's important for people to realize that industry can collaborate, and we are talking fashion, but we are talking about agriculture at the same time, and we're talking about all these other industries. We're talking about the whole value chain. Maybe you can tell us if you are documenting this anywhere, or how people can get this information or get involved in what you're doing as the Cotton Association.
Yes, we are documenting it, and we have put it openly on the Cotton website, though at the moment it's under renovation, but we have it because we're working on this project for the cotton stocks and cotton cake with FAO, the Food and Agriculture Organization. They're the ones who are trying to develop the business case with, so that we can work with the farmers, our farmers. So we're first trying to work with our members to create more membership. So if they are our members, we buy their cotton stocks. But even if they're not our members, we can still buy them. But for now, we're trying to promote and encourage our members not to, because it's easier working with our members first, and then later on we'll sell the whole idea of the cotton stocks and the cotton cake to everyone. But yes, we're documenting it, and on the website it's actually there. And yeah.
So we are working with the Ministry of Commerce on this.
Yes, actually, the Department of Industry is also involved, but the main organization involved is the UN under the Food and Agriculture Organization, because we have a project with them in agroforestry for climate smart agriculture. So they are the ones who are trying to help the farmers start doing the briquetting and gasification.
I'll take you back a bit to how you are working with local fashion designers. How are you encouraging them to use? I know you mentioned that most of the products that come from there are not in a way that you can use to make clothes, for example. But how, in other ways, are you working with designers to, use most of these? Because I know that we go and buy these things from Kamwala, and they are very expensive materials. So it would be nice to get local fabric, that we can actually use. You mentioned also that the weavers are using natural dye. Maybe you can just talk a little bit about that and how you are trying to encourage the designers to work with local textiles.
So in this, but we have expos, like local expos, for example, in district by district, we hold expos and we invite different kind of designers. We showcase the kind of materials, and we give them an opportunity where they can look at the material and think of creative ways they can use this material. And one of the lessons learned during these expos that we hold was that they preferred, for example, we had mostly white people who would come and visit, and these ones preferred the things that were naturally dyed. So from that, we encourage our farmers to use natural dyes, which will increase their sales. And we're trying to fade off the use of acrylic yarn from making such fabrics. So in terms of working with designers, we're just trying to popularize first the materials, the fabric, because every time we have such expos, we receive receive new people, and every time to be like their first time seeing it. So at the moment we can say we're not yet known for the kind of fabric we make. We're still trying to market it and make people know what these women are doing and what they are making. Then after that, maybe different kind of designers can come in and think of creative ways they can use this fabric. Yeah.
Chai, are you there?
Yes,
Yeah.
I am.
I'm looking at I'm looking at how this can be connected. You being the specialist, and I'm trying to see at what point designers would actually say, like they can call you up and say, okay, Chai, I think I'm designing a product, and I want you to give your input. For example, when you look at the 3 principles of circular design, where we have designing waste out of a product, right? And, keeping just what you mentioned before, keeping products in use, and, regenerating the natural systems, and all those things. Do you think, or how can, I don't know how to phrase this, but how do you think
How
you
can we
as
guide
this,
them?
yeah, how do you think they can be encouraged to work with specialists like yourself, to incorporate
Okay.
as they are designing their products before they're even designing? Because as a designer, you have to look at the lifespan of the product, right? From the time you're designing to the time it's going to be used and discarded, and whatever. Do you think you can how can designers really work with, or how can you encourage designers to work with you, to you know how can you collaborate with them?
Yeah, so I got your question. So basically, with sustainability consulting, a person already has the idea that they want to be clean or sustainable. Our own aim is to just guide them with the knowledge that we have around it.
Yeah.
So if a person comes to me, to them is, what is, first of all, have tax, or in the way that they operate from the office side, or are they trying to be into so that's also a sustainable thing. So one thing to put yourself in, you'd say either if in fashion, you could tell them, okay, you're going to be an ethical fashion person, or you're going to be into slow fashion, or you're going to be in sustainable fashion based off of their own objectives. And then after that, we guide them in the entire procedure of their activities. So that we call that life cycle. So I'm going to sit with them and I'm going to say, to be the life cycle of your, same thing with things like life cycle is with.
Yeah, I think Chai is having a problem with the connection. Are you able to hear me, Chai?
There are different sustainable ways that we can, I think it's, can you hear me?
I hear you now.
I don't know why it's cutting.
Yeah, I did.
Okay, so basically, like I said, I'll tell them, okay, I can guide you with the full life cycle of your activity. So you tell me, okay, where are you extracting your materials from? I would advise you, if you tell me you want sustainable materials, I would advise you potentially to buy locally, because it makes no sense for you to import from very far, especially as local as possible. If you can't get as local in Zambia, at least maybe try South Africa or something. But by importing very far, importing from very far, you're emitting CO2 gases, so it's contradictory, it's no longer sustainable. So I'd basically just advise you on how to be as ethical as possible and as transparent, because the thing also with sustainability is transparency. So then, different stages, at different ways that we can advise people on methods that they could use and everything. And we usually use that concept of life cycle. So another example, for example, would be, I'd say, okay, at the distribution phase, we're trying to deal in circularity, we're trying to deal with waste. So how can you reduce waste with your consumers? I'll tell them, okay, why not have a system where you have return policies or fixing policies, first of all, so people can reduce. So for example, you sell an item to someone, and in that you got a price, that's a fixed price of the item you sold. And then there's an extra price, which is called 2 times for repairs. So in the repairs, you identify that maybe we can fix buttons, we can fix steers or things like that. And that's literally price that you recreate to your business. So you just have like little schemes that can enable you to, like we provide them with different schemes and options that can enable them to basically be sustainable. So that's how we come in as sustainability consultants. If that, I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. I know that you have come up with a document, Chai, that can be useful to designers who really want to take this path. With your permission, I think we can upload it. Let me just see if I can just show it a little bit.
Sure, of course.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's that one, right? You can see it?
I think so.
Yeah. Yeah, this is the document. With your permission, I think if people are interested in seeing it, then yeah, we could connect them to you. One.
Betsy, I don't think we can see anything. I can't see any.
You can't see it?
No.
Okay. Okay, I'll stop sharing now. And yeah, well, anyway, just as we have mentioned, we can we can share the document, or we can connect them to you. The whole idea really is to get people talking, is to get people inquiring, what they can do, how they can do it, and possibly adopt the systems that we are trying to introduce. Yeah, I think, Beena, you wanted to say something. Beena, are you there?
Just adding up to what Chai said, like from the creative aspect, or from the designer point of view, or from the retail point of view, there are a lot of good examples, like where they, they allow the customer to lease a product, for a year or something like that, and they just bring it back after a year, and that can be recycled into further into something else. And like very simple example I can give you is of mud jeans. What they do is they basically lease the jeans for a year, and after that the customer can bring it back, and then that jeans is basically again recycled into a sweater or a jeans. There are a lot of such brands which are really working towards that. In India itself, there's an example where in Goa, where the customers bring back their products after refashioned, reprinted, redyed, and then something new is available for the customer to buy. So such examples are, it starts with one person and then the chain follows. There are people who join in. So I always feel that it starts at the level of the level where the resources are developed, the level where it is converted into a product, the level where the designers come into being, the level where it is retailed, and of course, as an academician, I feel the sensitizing the students towards it, and finally, the people who are finally going to buy it, sensitizing the consumers towards it. So it's a big process where everybody needs to be sensitized at some or the other level. So when that happens, it will actually result into something what we are aiming at.
I think I'm just thinking now that, you know, this recycling and upcycling and all those things, we are now, I mean, we are now in the times of this COVID pandemic where we are being told not to stand very close to somebody, you know, maintain a distance, and, you know, all these health issues that are going on. How do you think, like, for example, the recycling and all those things is going to be affected? Because I'm thinking sometimes maybe people might not want to wear something that belonged to somebody else because of, you know, fear for all these health issues. I don't know, Chai, maybe you can come in on that one. How can we deal with all these health issues when we are talking about recycling and even if we are not talking about clothing, for example, or textiles and things like that. We were talking about earlier, we were talking about dump sites and all those things. I mean, there's all these health hazards are surrounding all this recycling and whatever. What can you say about that? How can it be handled as we are trying to push this agenda?
So I like that you brought that up, because now this is a new kind of another pedestal that we have to jump over again.
Yeah.
Something we do not expect to have to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to have to, it would have to be backed up with scientific proof. That's the first thing. Whenever you're dealing with things like this, you don't have any diseases being transmitted through these items. So I don't know if people are already trying to practice that already. I mean, in the industry, because since we're not moving around and we're not really allowed in certain countries, people can't even interact yet. I don't think the whole upcycling and recycling is an issue yet. It will potentially become an issue when doors open up again and we start re-interacting. We'll be more wary of where we're buying our things. We'll be more worried about which water we're drinking, which plant we're sitting on and whatnot. So I think it's something where, as usual, we'll have to really work with the whole scientific aspect of things and come up with proofs and that show people that, listen, it doesn't matter if you're using this reused material. Science shows that 99% for sure there is no diseases on this and whatnot. But I think that's something to come. It's not something we're particularly dealing with directly right now because of the reduced amount of activities and sales and all that. So, but I do think it's something that would definitely come up in maybe a few months or a year or so.
Dr.
Just to answer your
question. Are you here? I'm seeing there's other people from the university are not here. I just wanted to ask something with regards, you know, the other day we were talking about education, curriculum development, and how people come up with all this content. Are you there, Dr. Chala? Or is there somebody that can answer on your behalf? Okay. Okay, what I wanted to ask, maybe anyone can take it up. Maybe Beena, because you're from the education side. Just on this health issue, as you are teaching the students on this sustainable thing, do you touch on the health issues of, you know, sustainability and stuff?
Yes, I would love to answer that question, Betty. As we were talking about, I mean, you, of course, Chai gave a good answer to it. Since till now, we never really thought about it. And it was a very good question from your side, stating that, of course, we are going through this pandemic and all those things, and how we really need to, address this issue of, you're actually correct, when you're saying that people are wary of wearing something that somebody else has worn, or taking the waste. But then these normally what happens is, in the industry, whatever a person, very simple, as I told you, like, okay, you take a garment which is already being worn by somebody else, that is always sanitized, that's always treated, and then it comes to the market. It's not just that the person has worn it and it's removed and it goes into the market. So those things are basically treated. Similarly, there are designers who are working with scraps of fabric which are basically incurred from the industry, which are basically coming from the industry. We have a very good example in India by the name of Doodle Age, which is owned by a designer called Kriti Tula, who's from London School of Fashion. And she basically uses scraps from the industry, and that industrial waste is converted into something that is luxurious, something that is wearable, something that is interesting. But then again, these scraps are treated, these scraps are washed, treated, and then only they are utilized. So I mean, I really don't see that the concerns of health and all those things really I mean should be a problem, especially when it comes to all these things of recycling, upcycling, and revamping, refurbishing, and all those things, because they are washed, they are sanitized, they are the health issue is addressed to before it really comes for the next stage of its life cycle. I hope I could answer your question.
You have answered the question. It's just that as we're talking about these things, I just want us to be as realistic as possible. And I'm just thinking, as you are talking about sanitizing, washing them, and all those things. And earlier, again, we were talking about how do we preserve our resources, right? I'm thinking, okay, are we not using the same water again, like as much water as, to wash these things and to clean them? And do you think that maybe by doing that, maybe we are using lesser water than making fabric textiles from scratch? Doris also maybe I think can come in here, because you do all this ginning and weaving, and how much water do you use? Because we are looking at everything at the end of the day. We are looking at how we are using these materials and what are we preserving, what are we prolonging, and all those things. Maybe Doris, before Beena can come in, how much water do you think the people who are making the textiles use to come up with, or first of all, from the growing of the cotton up to when they have a final product, the textiles? How much water, how much time and energy is used?
Hi. So in terms of water with cotton, cotton growing does not really require much water. So the cotton we grow in Zambia is basically rain-fed. So yeah. Then in terms of the processing, I honestly can lie in terms of that. But I've been to an we have we have one member who's trying to make cotton wool, hospital cotton wool, and with him he does he uses a lot of water. I noticed that, which also he just throws it, like it's basically an informal setup on what he tries to use. So he has all these drums where he puts water, he stores it for so long, and then he just throws it outside his backyard. The waste from which is in water form with chemicals. So maybe that's one thing that as an association we can look into, because it's I don't think it's safe for that community in terms of that. But in terms of your whole question, I don't really have a good answer for that. but I just thought of that one particular member that we have who uses such methods. Yeah. You're on mute.
Betty, I would just continue with the same, answering to your question with an example. I had visited one of the industries which basically is into ethical fashion and sustainable production and everything, where they were giving, right from the beginning of the life cycle, getting the right kind of fabric, organic fabric, getting it dyed naturally, printing it with ethical ways. Also, to the extent that whatever water was generated into the washing and everything and the finishing of the garment, that also was recycled and reused. So there are alternatives. It's up to the people who are actually doing it to adopt it as much as possible. So alternatives are always there. It's up to it, the onus lies on the person who is actually doing it to whether to adopt it or not. So there are industries which are basically, like, very simple example of Levi I can give you is like, I had just read an article where they were making their jeans. Whatever left from the jeans was shredded, and it was again used for the stationery that was used for Levi. So, there are many examples that are there where people are really, conscious about these kind of things. And the water wastage, most of the industries are having effluent plants, where, effluent treatment plants, which are basically treating the waste. The waste is segregated, and that is removed, and the good and the fresh water is basically again taken back for further processing and everything.
I think we are almost winding up with our conversation today, but I think I just want to emphasize really on how can designers adopt this circularity and make their systems more sustainable and have products that have a longer lifespan and better products and everything. I don't know, Chai, is there something that you would like to add, especially that we are trying to get people to understand this circularity on the local level and adopt it? Is there something that you would like to add to that? Chai, are you here?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Hello?
we can hear you now. We can hear you now.
So quick recap on what I said before. So your question is how to adopt and make a more sustainable fashion system in Zambia. I think my main emphasis is not to limit yourself on the options that you have. I know that a lot of times the discussion is always just on the type of material that you're using, but there's so many ways that you can be sustainable. And no way is less valid or credible than the other way. You can be sustainable by focusing on a social aspect. For example, you say that you're creating jobs and you're working with women in areas, for example, they're the ones producing your, like what mentioned here, we've got women producing cotton in an ethical manner. That's already women empowerment, that's a social aspect, and that's part of sustainability. You can look into potentially telling people, okay, I might not have the abilities to have sustainable clothes in itself, but I can maybe make enough money and put that money into a cause, for example. Maybe put it into a cause in schools or somewhere, or maybe going to invest in a designer place where you're teaching locals how to produce their own clothes so they don't over extract a raw material outside. There's what activities we have outside which are detrimental. There's overfishing, there's overconsumption of fish or whatever. So basically, there's so many axes that you can use. And it's interesting that today we spoke about circularity, which is a good thing, but there's so many ways that you can be sustainable. And I think it's be interesting for designers to open up their doors and really explore all the ways that they can help promote most of your budgets. There are other ways that you can address it. If something is not particularly in your area, materials, whatever, there are other ways that you could still be sustainable. So honestly, just open your doors and possibilities are out there. There's so many ways that you can be part of this movement. So that's my answer to your question.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think people get the idea generally of what we are trying to push on the ground, and we can only hope that people can listen in and ask the questions that they need to ask, and probably, or most likely, if they can, they can just join in the movement and try to see what they can do. What we are trying to say is that we are trying to be as responsible as possible. And Beena mentioned that, it's only now that the word circularity and whatever is more like poshy and it's just come up. But we've been doing this for some time now. I think I remember even growing up, we would hand down our clothes to the younger siblings. When the dress becomes small, we hand it down. And sometimes if we didn't hand it down to our siblings, we'd put all these things together and take them to the villages where people needed them and stuff. So really all these things have been happening, but it's just that, sorry.
Now add on to your comment. I think also another issue that we've seen, though, I like that you mentioned that we handed things down or whatever. There's a certain, one thing we should get back into is respecting value and culture. There was a certain thing about valuing things back in the days, you handed back a dress by a mother, it's 3 generations down, maybe it was your grandmother's dress, you value it is like, oh my, consumer, I need to be in the trend. Okay, this is out. Okay, I'm done. This is not boring. I want to get that. I think we need to change our mindset and go back into valuing certain things and respecting things around ourselves. Everything is valuable around us. And we also need to be respectful of our own identities. You shouldn't, even as a designer, you should not feel pressured to do something because this is not the new thing, which is here, whatever. Have an identity, have an identity. For example, do things which are in your cultural thing. Identify yourself as a person and as a designer, and don't just try to be overspreading yourself. So I think, I like that you mentioned the whole handing things down. We've lost all those concepts, and I don't know how that happened, and it's unfortunate.
Yeah, I think it's we lost it somehow because of the way you mentioned culture. I think before also it's the way we used to live. We would have our cousins from, an uncle here, there, an aunt, and we used to live like, we used to take care of each other, and back in the day. But now it's more like, okay, it's me and my 2 children, and it's me and my 1 child, and it's, we don't have that mixing and helping each other like the way we used to. And so I think somewhere we have lost it somehow. Yeah. So yeah, I Doris, I don't know if you have anything else to add as we are closing. Okay, maybe Beena, you're here. Maybe you can add your last thoughts to the conversation.
Yeah, it was a great conversation. It was absolutely fantastic. Listening to Chai and Doris. Just to conclude, I loved your concluding statement where you said we used to hand over our, like if I have a younger sister or somebody in home, the younger children, we do just hand over our garments to them. And what Chai said earlier also, like she mentioned about, our culture, valuing our culture, valuing our this thing. I already mentioned this when I was talking. I did talk about, like very simple. A very good example that I can give you of is the bridal garments that we wear, which are basically that can be worn by if my grandmother or great grandmother had worn it, and those were made of natural fabrics. Those were made of silk. Those were made of the real gold and the real silver and all those things, which are very precious. So why not preserve them? Why not keep them safe? And it can be handed over as heirlooms for generations to, understand the value of those products. So, so the most important thing right now is about from the consumer point of view is to understand and value what you really have. And of course, designers are playing their own role, the industry is playing this own role, government is playing their own role. But as consumers, what are we exactly wanting from our lifestyles? Sustainability is a style of living. Sustainability is not a fancy word. Sustainability is in every aspect of our living. Very simple example I'm giving you here is of a wedding, in an Indian wedding I'm talking of, because I can talk about India. Zambia, of course, a beautiful place. I visited, lovely. Lusaka is amazing. But yes, I was there for a very short period. So I'm just talking about giving you an example of an Indian wedding which happened, and I happened to read it as an article. We basically, earlier we used to eat in banana leaves. Okay, the food was served in banana leaves. Again, it goes like the whole wedding, the bride and the groom did not take any gifts. They actually handed over gifts to the people who came in, and those were in form of small planters and small seeds which were given, and which the people can take it back and plant some trees. The food was all the vegetarian food, all vegetables. So whatever the leftover from the cutting the vegetables and everything, the peeling of the vegetables went into compost. And after eating the food, the banana leaves went into compost. So absolutely zero waste wedding. So people have to be conscious about these kind of things. People have to understand, yes, this is what is the most important thing. We are all living with good resources around us. It's just about us to basically understand, to try to use them in a way where we understand its relevance, and also to save them, because you have to save it for your future generations to come. So the proper use of the resources, the meticulous use of the resources, understanding that the waste itself is a resource, is the most important thing. You just think it is waste and you just throw it away, but it's actually not a waste. So a waste is not a waste till you treat it as a waste.
Beena, can I just add on something to what you
Of course,
just said?
please.
You know,
It would be a pleasure.
yeah, the one in Paris, most of the people, we had so many people from third world countries or indigenous people come and show the West their own traditional ways of just doing things. This had nothing to do. We pollute as a result of our westernization. Whereas if we went back to our own traditional ways that most of us have in like Africa or whatever, Asia, you do most of our ways were sustainable from the get-go. But because we're so in a rush to be Western, we're losing track of all these things. And it's unfortunate.
It's interesting that now you are mentioning that point, because now I'm thinking, are we adopting, I mean, we used to live like this before, right? We threw it away. And then now the word secularity and whatever is coming back from, and now we're like, oh, we're talking about secularity and everything, but we actually used to be sustainable people. I was talking to another friend of mine from India. I know Beena, you know him, and he says we were sustainable before. So where did we at which point did we lose it? And now we're trying to bring it back and call it secularity and whatever. So I think it's important that we try to identify maybe a word or terms that we can use locally and the way we used to live before, and go on with that one. Doris, are you ready to add your last comments?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Doris.
Hello. Oh, okay. Thank you so much, Betty, for this. It was such a lovely chat, and I've learned a lot from the participants in terms of sustainability and circular fashion. Well, for us as an association, I can just say we'll continue to encourage our women and our farmers to adopt more sustainable and eco-friendly practices in their farming and also weaving. We'll continue to work hard and really promote this concept. Yeah, thank you.
Is Dr. Chala there now to add your last words? Maybe Mr. Hawea, you can add something. Are you there, Mr. Hawea? We can talk about, the technology part of it, because I think also this circularity, recycling and everything also encompasses technology and how we can actually turn all this waste into something that can be useful. I think we cannot do away with technology and all those things. I wish we had somebody to talk more about how we can just fuse in technology and use technology to actually make new products, or adopt all these concepts that we are talking about. I don't know if Mr. Habwe, are you there? Are you able to add something? Okay, I think ladies, it's been lovely chatting with you. So much to listen. It's interesting that as we are winding up, all these interesting things are coming up. But I know that we can carry on the conversations. We can always do another one, hopefully, with your permission, and then we can talk more about things that we can use and adopt. Yeah. So I think this is the end of our conversation today. Thank you so much, Chai, Beena, Doris, and everybody else who joined in, Dr. Chala, the Rockville University, Mr. Hawea. Thank you so much, everyone. I think we will keep talking in the background, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Betty.
Thank you.
Thank you.